Welcome to today's podcast. Today we're going to be talking about MBS, which is Management by Strengths. And with me today is Fernando Arroyo. Hello, Fernando.
Hello, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming. Hey, I want to talk about something that's very close to everyone here at IBG and eLeader Tech, and that is MBS, Management by Strengths. It's in all of our training. It's in virtually everything we do. And when we talk with all of the people out in the field, we're always talking about MBS. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
As I mentioned, in all of our seminars, whether it's our leadership seminar, any of our competency seminars, our IBG F&I Bootcamp, we always have a section on MBS, which is Management by Strengths. It's understanding another person's temperament and basically learning how to communicate to others in the way they're going to best receive information. Now, Fernando, you're out in the field. You're talking with F&I managers. You're talking with some of our clients. I know MBS comes up a lot. What are some of the things that you talk about when you're out there talking with?
Yes,
clients?
of course. You know what? MBS is one of the things that, in my opinion, is very crucial to understand. And the reason why I say that is because there's a lot of times where individuals like to present products, especially in the business office, in the way that they're comfortable presenting it, meaning their own temperament. So what that means is that in the event that you're presenting in your own temperament, a lot of times you're saying things that doesn't really match with the other the customer's temperament, and therefore many times you're actually offending them by the way that you communicate with them,
and not even realizing it, that you're offending them. You know, one of the things we talk about in our temperament course is the golden rule. And of course, the golden rule is treat others the way you want to be treated. And that's exactly what you're talking about that. Well, that's a darn good rule. I mean, it's in many religions and philosophies, but we have the new golden rule, and that's treat others the way they want to be treated. You know, there's a pretty even distribution as we know about the temperaments. Okay, there are 4 different temperaments. There's a pretty even distribution of those temperaments throughout society. So if we talk to everyone the way we would regularly communicate, well, we're getting along with about 25%. And as you say, we may be offending 75% and not even realize it.
Yep.
Let me ask you something. You know, you went through the temperament course when you first started, and obviously you've become an absolute expert in temperament. You talk about it all the time. How does it when you're even at home and with family and things like that? Do you find yourself using temperament, or maybe going back on your temperament training to better communicate with the people you love the most?
Yes, so temperament is definitely something you can utilize, whether if it's at work, if it's at home with family or friends. You're constantly using it, as you know, that's if you understand the material, of course. Now, I do tend to use this at home many times. Whenever I'm having, a few hurdles within the household, I always think temperaments. Why is it that my family members are not receiving the information that I'm telling them? And that's when my switch kind of clicks in my head. And I said, oh, you know what? I am not presenting myself in this manner, and therefore I'm going to switch. And that's the moment I decide to implement certain, words, it's almost like it's just a different conversation that I typically have with family members or friends. So I think temperament training is something that everyone should have a little bit of knowledge on, in particular, once again, in the business office, because we are talking to guests that are unfortunately not seeing the products in front of them. We have to present in a way that we can paint a big picture in their heads, in their minds. And the best way for us to do so is if we're communicating with them in the way that they like to receive information, because then they understand the product a little bit easier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, one of the things we talk about in our temperament training is this is something that you are probably already aware of. We always ask the question, do you have siblings and things like that? And, people would raise their hands and things like that. And we also ask the question, if you wanted to tell something to your siblings, might you approach one sibling one way and another sibling another way? And they all say yes. Why would you do that? Well, because I know how they're going to react. Well, it's the exact same situation. We've known these people all our lives, so we know how they're going to react. But the neat thing about temperament training And once you get into the temperament training and then practice the temperament training by going into strengths.com religiously for about 30 to 45 days, so you really get this down, is so that you can immediately meet someone, understand what temperament it is, and then shift using proper bridge words and understand the way that they're going to receive information to better communicate with them.
Yeah. And actually that exactly what you just mentioned is the adjustment you need to make. And again, there's 4 temperaments. All 4 temperaments are strengths. We just need to recognize who are we talking to. In order for us to be able to be more efficient, I keep saying that because it is the reality. There's a lot of times when you're interacting with a guest and you believe that, oh, this guest happens to be this temperament, and throughout the middle of the presentation, you realize, you know what? That guest happens to be a different temperament, and I just noticed it. So that's when we're able to make that adjustment in order for us to be able to present the material a little bit, better in a way that they're going to understand it and hopefully, make their decision become a yes.
This is so important in all of our training that even in our software, we build it. Our express menu. Now, most menus out there, and there are good menus out there in the being presented, but they only present one way. With the express menu, it presents 4 different ways because it really, we built this realizing that to present just one way to one temperament, okay, we're not speaking to everyone the way they want to have that information brought to them. So exactly what you're saying there. And it's nice with the express menu. You may think at first that you're working with maybe a PACE person, all right, because they seemed a little bit shy at first. But then as you got to know them and they got a little bit more comfortable with you and they start talking a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, you realize that they're what? Probably an extroverted person. With the express menu, just touch a switch there and you can immediately switch your presentation to the different temperament. So everything we do revolves around MBS training and MBS temperament. As I mentioned, it's part of every one of our seminars, but we also, as you're very aware, offer MBS temperament training just on its own for dealerships and companies that are interested in making sure that both their internal and external guests are being served right. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, certainly. So we definitely have to be able to communicate with those individuals, whether if it's within our organization or outside of our organization, meaning a guest. And, we have to be able to approach them in a way that everyone is cooperating, everyone's understanding the material. For those that are within the organization, that way you guys can communicate more effectively and all the paperwork potentially could be finalized in a smooth transition or transaction. And then for those individuals outside of the organization is going to be, the guest and have them have a pleasant experience. And again, this is going to happen if we're utilizing the right verbiage or potentially adjusting that temperament.
So many of the dealerships and entities that we work with have embraced MBS so much that they have everyone in their organization attend it, go through it, and even down to their nameplates, okay, or even name cards, they have their MBS temperaments. But you bring up a very interesting point. That's really great as far as the interaction between your internal guest there, in other words, another person that you're working with, because you can see, oh, that person is extroverted or that person is structured, and adjust the way you speak to them. And if they're also adjusting the way they speak to you, that communication is even better. But unfortunately, we don't have guests or external guests walking in the door with this MBS graph on their forehead. So we, again, have to talk with them. And once you get very good with MBS, as you know, okay, within about a minute and a half, you've got a pretty good idea of what type of temperament that you're working with. And then you can adjust so that you're speaking to them again in the way that they're going to best receive information.
Yes.
For more information on MBS and temperament training, please contact me at my email. That's mhill@ibginc.com. Or you can give me a call on my cell, which is 801-440-7839. Fernando, thank you so much for talking about MBS with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right.